Running for anxiety. Does running help with anxiety? Well, we all know that physical exercise is good for us, but today I'm going to share some new, pretty interesting science about using physical exercise for anxiety. So please give me your full attention for just a couple of minutes here. Scandinavian Bob here, hi. As a former anxiety sufferer myself, my goal with this channel is to make hundreds of videos with all kinds of tools and tricks on how to cope with anxiety. So if anxiety is something that you struggle with, consider subscribing, click on the little bell icon, and let's get going. There is no longer any doubt that physical exercise helps with anxiety if we do it in a smart way. Research now shows that the more fit you are, the more stress it takes to turn on your sympathetic nervous system and your fight and flight mechanism. First, as most of you already know, running increases both dopamine and serotonin. And I'm sure many of you also know that increased levels of serotonin lowers your anxiety up to a point. This is why people with anxiety often use SSRIs, which is an antidepressant that targets the serotonin system. And for some people, elevated dopamine levels also lower anxiety levels. But here's the deal. Having too much of the neurotransmitters can also increase anxiety. And this is just one reason some people do not get better with medications. However, with physical exercise, your body not only raises the neurotransmitters, but it also puts them in the right proportion to each other, and making sure the levels are not too high and not too low. So going for a run is like fine-tuning your neurotransmitters. But here's something new that most people don't know. Physical exercise also activates something called neurogenesis. Now this is a fancy word for the growth of new nerve cells. And that in and of itself is fantastic stuff, as it repairs and makes our brains healthier. But it also helps with anxiety, because listen to this. A while back, Elizabeth Gold and her group at the Princeton Neuroscience Institute took a closer look at those new cells and found that the new cells that forms as a result of exercising contained much more GABA. Now, GABA is the chief inhibitory neurotransmitter in your brain and nervous system. For example, benzos and alcohol increase GABA, and we all know how relaxed a couple of drinks can make us. But needless to say, running does this in a natural way. And the more fit you are, the more of those GABA-containing cells you have in the hippocampus in your brain. And this is why it takes more stressors, more stimuli, or more negative experiences before you get anxiety if you become a runner. Now, all physical exercise is great, but running is especially good because the third thing that happens is that all the pounding of running fires up the endocannabinoid receptors in your skin. And yes, those receptors are the very same receptors that are activated if a person is taking cannabis in some form. And again, I think that most people know that that can also be very relaxing. But again, running does it all in a natural way. And by natural, I of course mean it does it all on its own, just as a result from running. So, how much should you run then? Well, this is a good question, because if you do too much, you will have elevated stress hormones the next day, and that will cancel out the otherwise calming effects. I would recommend you run 3 to 5 times a week, and that you keep the sessions about 20 to 40 minutes long, depending on how fit you are. And you should keep your heart rate at about 75 to 80% of your max. This is what the research points to as a good amount for reducing anxiety. It is easy to measure, and I recommend you use a heart rate monitor for this, because it will make the running both more effective and more interesting. I can leave a link to the brand I use myself under this video, but you certainly do not need one if you don't want to spend your money. If you don't want a heart rate monitor, just start running anyway, because it will of course still benefit you. But listen up here. Do not go 5 times a week for 40 minutes at a time your very first week if you are not used to running. Otherwise, you will not notice any anxiety relief. Start slowly and then build up to it. Now, before some of the serious runners out there go, "This is not the optimal way to improve your running," remember, this recommendation is about running to reduce anxiety and not necessarily running to win a marathon. Okay, so that's how running helps anxiety. I hope you found it informative, and if your feet and knees still work, why not put those sneakers on right away? Also, check this out. I have written a book called Discover Anxiety Solutions, and it's a book full of unusual and interesting tips on how to cope with anxiety, eliminating shyness, and becoming your most badass self. And right now you can download it 100% free of charge. Just click the link under this video where it says ebook and you'll find it there. And yes, it is really 100% free. Alright, this is Scandinavian Bob signing out for today, and as always I wish you all the best in your journey to become the strongest version of yourself. And remember, as Winston Churchill used to say, if you're going through hell, keep going.